Welcome to Sonic Subcultures Season 1. I'm one of your hosts, Safa Hachi. Over this series, we'll look at 9 records that represent the range of musical styles that fall under the nu metal banner. Each record represents an aspect of nu metal that's surprisingly finding itself back in the current music landscape. Considering I'm late to the game, I'm wondering how nu metal is back and why. To find some answers, Marc, Lajeunesse, and I look back at each record, do a deep dive on the content of the record, such as its form, lyrics, and impact. From that, with the help of our differing perspectives, we piece together what each record means now in the present day.
Today we're talking about Fear Factory's Digimortal on Sonic Subcultures. By April 2001, the general public had completely come down from the media-induced panic of the Y2K crisis and became thoroughly locked on a path towards the digital society we now find ourselves in. But Y2K was just another example in the long line of technologically driven panics. The band Fear Factory, as you can probably tell by the name, has always channeled this fear through aggressive metal stylized as industrial precision and rigidity. Their first record from 1992, Soul of a New Machine, channeled Terminator-like imagery along with the rhythms and tones of a metallic assembly line to convey a machinic take on heavy metal. While their early records deal with themes of industrialization through the aesthetic of the factory floor, combined with James Cameron's view of the machine apocalypse, their focus shifted to meet our changing technological times as we got closer to the turn of the millennium. In what might feel like a strange convergence, nu metal took its place as the popular paradigm of metal around the same time the internet became increasingly accessible, particularly among the middle class. And with this new technology and its impacts on communication and commerce, new fears could be felt on a horizon that we often associate with progress, at least if you're a technological optimist. The culmination between the actual and speculative digital horizons that awaited us at the turn of the millennium crystallized with heavy metal through Fear Factory's 2001 record, Digimortal. A portmanteau of digital and immortal, on the face the record taps into the same speculative ideas that we see now in episodes of Black Mirror. So through Fear Factory, what did nu metal have to say about where we were and where we were heading as industrialization collided with cyberspace? Safa.
Yes.
Fear Factory.
Yep.
Digimortal. So, this was your first time listening to this, but I think before we get into the record itself, the thing that I'm curious about, because of what this record represents and when it came out, is how would you characterize your relationship to technology, particularly around the emotion of fear?
Well, being born in 2002 and just having access to the internet and technology from the second I was born, I'd like to say that I'm used to it. I'd like to say that it can't take me down. I know it better than it knows me. But, you know, with AI just rapidly, it's the takeover is undeniable. Like, we've all been hearing the news, and I'm scared. I'm a lot more scared than I was, for sure. And I knew that going into this, this album would touch on those topics, but I thought that it was super interesting that, considering the time it was, produced in, written in, released, how they really hit the mark on, the fears that I feel like a lot of people are talking about. You even brought it up with, what's the name of that show? Black Mirror, sorry.
Yeah.
It's really what we're seeing now, the things that people who have been on the internet for a very long time, like myself, are still finding themselves scared of. So it was a bit eerie, spooky to kind of feel that connection. But that's my mental state going into this.
Yeah. So I am presently very apprehensive about where technology is taking us. Only afraid in the sense that many of the skills I have are the ones that are being offset by AI. I saw a job application today go by where for a script writer, but the position is you're not actually writing the script. You're running script ideas through AI and then curating the script.
Oh,
and I'm like, well, this is horrific. So I'm just afraid I will not be able to make money in the future. Like, I don't necessarily think we're going to be governed by drones, though the way things are going, who can say. But I think it's actually really interesting that you've like highlighted this new peak of trepidation and kind of anxiety around where this is taking us, even though you were born into like, we're kind of getting comfy with the internet, at least. By the time you were like sentient and had object permanence, you were probably like, yeah, I got a phone. Like,
this makes sense.
Yeah. How old were you when you got a cell phone, by the way?
Well, my parents were a bit more conservative.
Okay.
So I was, on a DS for a lot of my early teens.
Gotcha.
I probably didn't have a phone until I was 15, 16. But the things that like living room communal family computer saw, I did have access to that. So phone or no phone, I still was, on the internet.
Oh, that's interesting. You still went through the family communal computer, which is how I got into the internet. It was the computer in the basement. That we would all we wouldn't congregate around. We'd all use it independently. But yeah, that's kind of where we were. And there was a bit of that same kind of fear of like, what is the computer and its connectivity going to do to us? And I think Fear Factory taps into that in a way that is like shockingly poignant, in that the lyrical perspective is not really like they're not talking about it in a meta sense, but like Burton C. Bell's lyrics are about the emotion of what is this doing to a human being as this convergence moment is approaching. And of course it's nu metal. It has this metallic edge, so it's dark. Like the outcome is always dark. There's literally a moment on this record where he's just yelling dark. Right? Again,
he's letting you know.
It's very on the nose in terms of what it's doing. But I've always thought this record is hugely underrated, both within their discography and just as a nu metal record in general, because it's about a thing. Mm-hmm. And I really appreciate that it's about a thing in the way that System of a Down gets a lot of popularity because they clearly have like some overtly political lyrics, Rage Against the Machine as well. This is less obvious in the things that it's talking about, but it's so relevant still that I can put this on. Usually I listen to this record once a year. Because I don't think it's an earworm, although some of the stuff can get stuck in your head, but I always want to revisit it. And every time I do, I'm like, why does this nu metal record from 2001 still make sense? I can still connect to the feeling that he's expressing on it, even if I'm not 100% in, right?
Yeah, and now more than ever, honestly. At least that's how I'm seeing it.
No, kind of. This was maybe the most poignant year as the entire American democratic process is supplanted by techno-futurists, right? Like, it's a thing. So to get into the conversation, though, I do want to do our tradition of reading a review from around when the record came out. So this is Fear Factory's Digimortal review, written by Quentin Kalis, or Callis, I don't know, from Chronicles of Chaos, 2001. Here we go. I was hoping that on this album, Fear Factory would abandon some of the annoying nu metal stylings that plagued their previous album, Obsolete. I was hoping for something as innovative and original as Demanufacture, their 1995 record. Instead, we were presented with little more than a rehash of Obsolete. Disagree. Some minor changes here and there, but apart from atrocious rapping on Back the F Up, no surprises. In retrospect, the rap seems to be inevitable given the band's tendencies on Edge Crusher off the previous album, another rap kind of stylized song. For those unfamiliar with Fear Factory, what we have here are industrial tinged nu metal. Fear Factory appear to have found their comfort zone and are reluctant to venture outside its borders. This time around, they sound even more like Korn and others of their ilk. Again, Fear Factory expand on the concept of their previous albums, that of the conflict between man and machine. This trademark, like many others, is growing increasingly stale, like the by now obligatory inclusion of two slower, less heavy songs. Is that the... Come on, man. They have that on all their records, though. Admittedly, Invisible Wounds, Dark Bodies, the aforementioned song about yelling dark, is probably the best song on the album. On a positive note, the musicianship is above par. Dino will never be known as a virtuoso guitarist, but he has undoubtedly created his own incontrovertible style. More's the pity that he sounds so much like Korn. What? Utilizing the same rolling guitar sound. Brother, what? Bell prefers to shout rather than growl. True. Though his ethereal clean singing is vastly underutilized.
True.
Also true. Herrera shows us once again why he is regarded as one of the metal drummers. That is the sentence that is in this review.
Just one of them.
He's just one of them. I'm assuming he missed a word like best or most technical.
No,
He's
kidding.
certainly not the worst. Very mechanical, but really impressive playing. This is not really a bad album. The musicianship can't be faulted. The songwriting is not too bad. It's just too predictable, and we have grown to expect so much more from this band. 6 out of 10. Thoughts on the review?
I'm agreeing with some things. I'm disagreeing with some things heavily, though. Like, I don't know how I feel about the Korn comparison, question mark.
I don't understand.
Yeah, no,
it
I
at
don't
all.
really see
it
that.
doesn't sound like Korn at all.
I think in relation back to the comment you made about it being an album about something, I feel like, and maybe this is me kind of using I like when something's flashy, I like when something is able to like be commercialized.
Sure.
Yeah. I feel like it talks about something and that's so important, but it just doesn't have that like extra thing that I'm looking for. And I feel like maybe that's why I couldn't get into it.
Right.
And if I understood the review from that angle as well, I feel like it just feels like there's something missing, which is a shame because the topics are very interesting and very relevant, but it's just like it's hard to kind of keep going. That's what I felt listening to it, to be honest.
This is where I'm going to fully agree with you.
Yeah.
And I think Fear Factory has had this problem throughout their entire run of records, which continues until now. I think they had one come out in 2023.
Okay.
Which is that, like, for as good as parts of it are, especially he mentioned the clean vocals on the record are interesting. They don't really sound like anyone else.
Agreed, yeah.
Yeah, and they're probably not used as much as they should be for how unique they are. Even his like more aggressive vocal style, there is no vocalist on any other record I've ever heard that quite does what Burton does, even though I might even say, depending on what day I'm listening to it, this isn't great.
Yeah.
There are days where I'm like, this is sick as hell, do your thing, dude, and there are days where I'm like, I don't quite get it.
Yeah.
But it's unique, to say the least. 6 out of 10, maybe. I don't know.
It makes sense. I feel like,
sense.
yeah.
One of the big things to characterize this is they started much more as like a traditional metal band in the 90s. And then with 1995's record, it was just straight industrial metal with a little bit of electronic accent on it. And I do think that record has a bit more of the little bits of spice on it where you're like, that was a fully satisfying listen. But it still does get repetitive because the downside of really trying to make your rhythm section sound mechanical is that it wears on you like it would if you were actually in a factory. And that's where Obsolete and this record, Digimortal, get a bit weird because they do this curve towards nu metal. They're still doing the industrial metal thing, but you can start to hear a lot more twangy riffs.
Yeah, it's a bit groovy at times.
There's some groove.
Yeah.
And the groove, so it's a nu metal record in that they're doing the thing that a lot of bands around this time felt like they had to do if they were in this oeuvre a little bit. Machine Head did this. Tons of bands did this, where nu metal's the thing, even though we're doing a different brand of nu metal, or of metal rather, we should do something to bring in some of this flavor because this is what the market is. And I don't think that's necessarily like appealing to the market. I do think it's just kind of absorbing into your artistic practice. Like, this is what the times are calling for, but it makes a very odd, incongruous sound when the industrial, like the snap, 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 snap of the kick drums are combining with the do 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 of the groovy
the
nu
groove
metal parts, but they're rigid grooves, right? And so I do think actually, because of how strange the combination is, this record does only really sound like itself and a little bit like the record that came before, but it isn't really what people wanted from Fear Factory at the time. Going back to a later review in 2004, they did a retrospective of all of Fear Factory's record up to that point, and it was like, Digimortal, this is obviously and unanimously Fear Factory's worst record, right? And it's like, oh, interesting. But it does some very interesting things, I think.
I like that you like bring up them kind of experimenting with different sounds, because I wrote one thing here, and I feel like back in the day, like compared to like newer bands, whether nu metal or not, I feel like they're kind of allowed to like experiment and diverge from their sound while still being respected. That depends on popularity, but they're still seen as their like original genre. Like they still fit into new metal. But I feel like with that also comes people judging maybe extra hard. And we're seeing that in these reviews where it's like, okay, you're new metal and you want to try something different. Yeah, the different kind of sucked. But I still do like appreciate that within that sphere, like within the new metal world, there's still, every band kind of tries something different. I thought that was like worth noting because I did notice, like you said, the groove and like the industrial machinery kind of aspect of the metal record.
So I do want to talk a little bit about like the themes and the lyrical content of the record, especially on just a few of the key tracks. I'm not going to go over the whole thing because I don't feel like there is an overarching story to this album so much as there is like the idea is the name of the record, is the cover of the record, which is like a circuitry board with a human, like it looks like a bathroom sign.
It does.
Drawing of a like the male body.
Me on Canva.
Yeah, it's like a male bathroom circuit board.
You're really selling it.
No, the cover is not good, and also the name of the record has always been silly, while still being good, but maybe that's a new metal thing, I think.
Definitely.
So lyrically, what is this record doing? Not unlike some of the other records we've listened to, other than maybe Rage Against the Machine and a bit of Kitty, it's quite vague about what specifically its point of view is on technology and what it's putting out into the world, right? Like it's not articulating a political position relative to technology. It's not even articulating so much like a personal position relative to technology, I think. It's kind of just tapping into the unknown and the fear of what's coming and emphasizing that like people and tech are coming together, and I'm just kind of reacting with some of these very short verses, you know, effectively like a line or two of poetry that are encapsulating like how I'm feeling as the vocalist.
I guess that is new metal fashion though. Like it's kind of staying above the surface of complaining or questioning something.
Yeah.
But I guess the only difference with this album is because he picked an actual theme instead of just being upset.
Yeah.
He's kind of maybe allowed to do that. That's kind of how I saw it. Like I didn't see it as lazy, although you did not use that word. Because I feel like the other albums, like they're complaining and they're upset, but you don't know about what. I feel like because of the lens you're going through when looking at this album about the technological woes and like everything, I feel like he's kind of allowed to be kind of just questioning things and just telling us about what's coming because it's within that realm, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm also being vague, but it's new metal fashion.
No, it's true. It's true. So the first vocal line of the record on the first track, What Will Become, is just an exclamation. Simply one word. Become. Right? And what is becoming? Unclear at this moment, but I assume it has something to do with technology. The first verse, we've cut in, cut out, the face of man, cut in, cut out, the face of, and that just ends on an ellipsis. And this is that, it's like a flickering screen image, right? It's the idea that you can even see later on in some Death Grips tracks that are dealing with technology. There's a line in Artificial Death in the West, is the Death Grips track that this is on, where like MC Ride's talking about seeing himself in the mirror and his reflection, but his reflection isn't in the screen, in the black mirror. It's not reflecting himself back to himself, right? And this is kind of channeling that same idea just through nu metal instead of whatever specific thing Death Grips is, right? But it's still there. It's that same kernel of like the anxiety of not being able to recognize yourself in the black mirror you're staring into. The track Digimortal. It continues on in this technological trend here to be about bodily degradation in the face of two things. One, predictive intelligence, and two, technological permanence. Though they're not using these words, right? It's just the reaction to these two features, right? And it's how he's doing this is he's talking about coming to terms with your own mortality when so much can be preserved. So here's a verse. As I witness my own degeneration, the future condemns me. One step closer to my fate, one step closer to the grave. John Durham Peters, a media scholar, writing The Marvelous Clouds in, I think, when was this released? 2020, 2021? Maybe a bit earlier than that. Has this chapter on Facebook and talking about how, like, digital inscription is like the new form of like the mummification and preservation of language, but not just language. After we've long gone, our faces remain. There's tons of Facebook memorial pages. I have friends who have passed away whose pages are still there and they just don't get taken down, and they exist now somewhere in this matrix. People can still comment on them, right?
Yeah, you live forever online.
You kind of do, although John Durham Peters does remind us all that the computer will not survive the inevitable heat death of the universe. But it's so interesting that this same idea encapsulated through like nu metal lyricism is really heavily theorized through media scholarship in like 2020, which I was just like, man, the nu metal folks at times are really onto something, but they're able to sum it up purely emotionally through that aggressive edge. And I feel like the Venn diagram of people reading John Durham Peters and listening to Fear Factory's Digimortal may only be me. But, you know, if you're out there, feel free to send us an email, because I'd love to have you as a guest on the pod. No, no support groups. Only content. So the next track that I want to talk about is called Linchpin. It is probably the thesis of the whole record. The song went on to become the name of their compilation record from 2019 as well. It's probably the most famous song they did, other than the cover of like the 80s song Cars, which was really popular, but really doesn't sound like Fear Factory at all. So the first verse. See the light, a new day has arrived for us, genesis of our evolution. A linchpin holds within a means to an end. Can't you see that we are one? Can't take me apart. What is he talking about here? The convergence. You can't be separated anymore. It's here. We are together. We are stuck. The second verse. Without me, you will fade. You will not remain. We are one and of the same future machine. And then the chorus, doubling down on this. We see no end to the dream. We will never see the end. We will never be the end. All my life I felt discarded, never feeling a part of it. And man, if that doesn't encapsulate like being online and being one with the machine while like this feels like it's going to go on forever, am I living? This also just sums up like LinkedIn self-promotion. Like where I see my LinkedIn profile and all the things I've done on it. If I ever post anything on LinkedIn, I feel like it's not the real me, even though I've just typed the things in and sent the message. It is a simulacra. Like it's not me.
Yeah. I literally opened up a LinkedIn account like 2 weeks ago, and every time I get to the About Me section, I freeze. Like, I'm like, I don't want to get into this. Like, so I've kind of
Nor do I want to tell anyone about me through pure commercialism. Like, there's an illness, but like, never feeling a part of it, man. Burton Bell, he got it right there. The only authentic place is this podcast. And so all of Digimortal is before social media, right? This is 2001, post Y2K. They started writing this in 2000, so it really is channeling that whatever happened leading up to Y2K and after. This is before being chronically online. Like, unless you were in like early web forums or forums for like fan cultures, you probably weren't chronically online at this point. It's before a legion of techno-futurists started to break American democracy apart. And they weren't predicting the future. It's not like Burton C. Bell was like an all-seeing guy who knew everything that was about to happen. But like this energy, all of this was already in the air. And I think because nu metal, despite all its flaws and weirdness, is so attuned to like when the hairs on your back are standing up and you want to do something about it, it's the thing that lets that net, like, that can be caught in that nu metal net and expressed. Though again, is it expressed super well? I kind of think it is if you're actually listening. But that's the recurring question here is, can you even listen to this?
I feel like that's kind of what I was mentioning in the beginning of this episode, sort of, where I was like, if you take when this album was released, I feel like it kind of makes sense that we're still in the questioning phase. Like I wrote down, I know you just said it as a joke, like they're not all seeing, but I feel like the more we dissect these records, new metal kind of has like a prophetic quality a bit, like whether it's through its like aesthetics, its critique of political systems, or like its focus on systemic corruption.
Yeah.
I feel like the genre like intuitively grasps the anxieties that define our present day, in the sense that like Significant Other by Limp Bizkit mentions like the manosphere, the angry man approach to like the current conservative climate shift.
Yeah.
We've got Rage Against the Machine, who mirrors the same kind of rebellion and opposition to institutions, and something as like modern feeling as AI has found its way within like a 2001 new metal record like Digimortal. So I just thought that was very interesting. Like, yeah, it's a bit vague, but they're kind of going with what they have, and it still makes so much sense, but now we're kind of able to fill in the gaps for them.
Yeah.
That's how I saw it.
Yeah, to be like, yeah, it didn't quite go as wrong as you thought as quickly, but the simmering distrust is still present.
Like, are they predicting,
and maybe more acute than it was before?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's on Demanufacture where they have like Hunter Killer is the name of one of the tracks, and I'm immediately thinking of like drones coming across the border. You know, like
Literally,
it still works, right?
Or even as something as simple as those like Amazon delivery packages like coming to your door with a drone. Like, it doesn't seem as like scary or like end of times, but just something as simple as that is really, like you said, the hair, the back of the neck.
It does seem scary though when you like multiply the amount of drones and consider that each one of these could have been an employed person.
Well, yes.
It's a different kind of death. So the last thing I do want to talk about is the track that is sandwiched in the middle of this record that appears to have nothing to do with the record. It's track 8, and I will censor myself here. It is called Back the F Up, featuring Be Real of the rap group Cypress Hill. Safa.
Yes.
When you were listening to Digimortal and track 8 appeared in your ears, how were you feeling?
These are the notes I have on.
Yeah, please.
This track feels like the most new metal track of this record. I like this one. I like the bridge. And also, in parentheses, with Be Real, Insane in the Brain singer.
Yeah.
Those are my notes. So I think I was kind of taken aback when I was like in the headspace of like, okay, yeah, the government is taking over, be scared of technology. And then I was like, oh my God, yo, like it's a new metal track. So I kind of like, I enjoyed it, but yeah, I don't know. I feel like it took me out of the questioning phase a bit.
No, it really does, because like the whole thing about this record is like back the F up, or this track rather is like it's kind of just a anthemic step off of me.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's what the other part of the chorus is.
He got a bit of confidence. He
back
stopped
up
questioning.
Off of me,
yeah.
something like that to that effect. I didn't write down those lyrics, so I apologize for not quoting you guys verbatim. There's the white boy rap on this track is quite possibly the worst I've heard.
100% agree.
And which is a shame, because I think there are times when Burton is like one of the better new metal vocalists, especially when he's doing his clean stuff. Like he's got a really good like clean voice that's super unique, and then like he's really out of his element here.
He's just trying something out, poor guy.
He's trying something out. I recommend you listening to the track for the novelty of it, dear listeners, but
for ha-has, but don't
don't judge Fear Factory on the back of this.
Please don't.
If you do listen to Fear Factory at all, I would actually probably suggest Demanufacture instead of this record, or Demanufacture and this record together, because they kind of show you what happened within those 6 years of metal culture, and how these bands that were really firmly like hard metal acts, like really on the line between like extreme and palatable metal, just adopted all this new metal flavor into what they were doing. And I think I'm trying to imagine a world where instead of doing all the new metal stuff, they were more interested in like adding electronic elements to really capture the sonic essence of the cyber theme that they're doing. Maybe that makes this an all-timer, because now you just have weird new metal riffs instead of having like hybrid electronic sounds that actually emphasize the theme.
Yeah, that's
true.
I mean? Yeah, it was feeling more like industrial.
Like, why is this here?
Yeah.
Yeah, because it
makes sense.
That's their core sound. Because what they're adding is the new metal to their industrial core.
Yeah, but they could have branched out.
Adding like electronic and the computerized bleep bloops and the Terminator sounds.
Yeah, yeah.
There's something that could have been done. Also, I think maybe these new metal musicians were writing pretty quickly under some.
We gotta go. We got 3 years.
Exactly. Before
we got a window.
About to burst.
Literally, like we got a window of popularity, and we gotta use it. And at least he used it for good, kinda. He's like, let's talk about the future before no one wants to listen to us again.
Oh yeah.
They didn't know about this podcast. Just you wait.
That's right. And I'm sure they will be very surprised that anyone cares about Fear Factory's Digimortal. If you guys ever do hear this, I love this record. I loved it back in the day. I love it now. It's flawed, but like I will always put this on once a year until I'm dead. I don't care. Tradition. Any last thoughts on technology?
Keep an eye out for OpenAI. Those cases. If you're listening to this and there's new developments in the story, put on this record. Reflect a bit. Let's see where things are going. Hire me to write a script or your music instead of putting it in OpenAI. Thank you. Bye, Fear Factory. Bye. See you next time on Sonic Subcultures. Thanks for listening to Sonic Subcultures Season 1. This podcast is produced by Marc Lajeunesse and Safa Hachi in conjunction with the Media History Research Center at Concordia University in Montreal, Canada.